3 league wins in a row, aiming to make it 4 at Fortune's Rodney Parade despite a midweek setback in the Cup. This is what happened when Port Vale came to town. Welcome to All New Look Back at Amber, an exclusive Newport City Radio podcast from us, Newport County fans. Since 2010, we've been the best place to be for all things audio, and we're giving you even more in 24. Coming up in the next 45 minutes or so, I'm Luke, asking all the big questions I'd like to ask about the injury situation.
I'm Keiron, and I'd like to know what we're going to do with our back line.
Never miss out by following us wherever you find this podcast, and listen live at 2 p.m. on a Sunday and 7 p.m. on a Wednesday after almost all League 2 home matches.
Right here, right now.
Newport City Radio.
Oh, Keiron, this the new look back in Amber is not the most upbeat as we normally are on this podcast, or radio show if you're listening live. But yeah, we'll come on to that in a couple of seconds' time. How you doing, first and foremost? If we can put an emotion on things.
If you want to take the football aside, I'm absolutely fantastic, but in the context of what we're doing, I kind of can't. So I've been better. We'll put it that way.
Hopefully a nice discussion, nice debate will cheer you up. Talk us through Port Vale's recent form coming into the game of Rodney Parade yesterday.
Oh, of course, they had played 4 League 2 matches, one being a 2-0 away win to Salford on the opening day, following with a 0-0 draw against Tranmere at home, a 4-0 loss to Barrow away from home, and most recently a 3-2 loss at home to Doncaster. It's a bit of mixed form given their kind of pre-season expectations, I suppose.
Recently relegated, weren't they, last season? And you could tell that. We'll come on to that after. How did Newport County line up? Go on.
Well, we had Nick Townsend in goal, Shane McLaughlin on the right, Cameron Evans, Kyle Jameson and Kieran Brennan in centre-backs, of course Anthony Glennon on left-back. You then had a midfield 3, as opposed to what we've seen previous with Antwi, Morris and Wildig, and then a front 2, by the looks of things, going to Fortmob of Courtney Baker-Richardson and Bobby Camwer.
Indeed we did, and I know you want to talk about the defence. It's part of your talking point, and I want to talk about injuries, part of mine. But when Shane McLaughlin went down, injured, I knew it would be a long afternoon.
Yeah, I think, didn't Nelson Jardim said after the game, he was like, when he obviously came off in the 5th minute, he had to kind of disrupt what that backline was planning on. If I'm not mistaken, wasn't it Sanka who came on? And then wasn't it Evans who then took that role of wing-back? Yeah,
Sanka came on at the right centre-back position, and then Cameron Evans. I keep getting confused with Cameron and Kieran Evans. We lost one Evans, but we gained 2 Evanses in return. But yeah, they went to the back. Very inexperienced.
Yeah, I think that's a thing that we've been conscious of for the entire summer and everything, but up until this game, we didn't really see that inexperience come into fruition, if you want to put it that way. But I think, as I'm sure we'll go into in a moment, I think the inexperience showed quite a bit throughout the game.
Yeah. Now, before we dissect how poor Newport County were yesterday, let's give all credit to Port Vale. We're not going to sit here and talk for 45 minutes about how County were poor yesterday, how they could get better, because yes, we were poor, but Port Vale realised that and capitalised on that.
I think it's a thing that Port Vale did that no real team have done when they've played us. They've kind of noticed our weaknesses, and albeit, the injury to Shane McLaughlin, if that wouldn't have happened, maybe it would have panned out differently without the disruption at the back. But no, they saw the weaknesses that we had in the back line. There's a lot of, we talked about on the last show, there's a lot of open pockets of space, especially when you're talking maybe drifting out wide. We've had issues potentially with our wing backs not covering their wingers as well. And to be fair, they exploited it, albeit I believe, in my eyes, probably 3 of their goals were very easily preventable, and more the I wouldn't even. I don't want to be overly negative, but that defence was so shaken up, and if it went differently, maybe we wouldn't be talking about conceding 4. But it is what it is.
You just mentioned open pockets of space, and we mentioned at the top of this about the inexperience. Nelson Sanka came on in the 5th minute. I think that was his. He hasn't even made 10 league appearances for Newport County. Keiron Brennan is coming back into the back line. He hasn't really featured much over the past year or two. Obviously, Carl Jameson last season was very inconsistent with injuries, and obviously James Clark's out. Those open pockets that you mentioned, which they exploited really, really well yesterday, and if we come up against these top teams who are favourites for promotion, as you said, there was a lot of pre-season talk about Port Vale that they might have not lived up to so far this season. I think they definitely did yesterday. Do you see the open pocket thing kind of going away as the season goes on and these players become more experienced? And what do you think about how do you kind of close up those pockets? Because we've seen them when we were a back 4 and then we switched to a back 5, which you'd think would sort out the defensive spaces, but we just seem to revert back to type.
No, I think it'll come with time. Like I said when we did this last, patience is the thing that we need to have this season, especially with that defence. But of course, the entire team is inexperienced in its own rights. I'm sure within time, they'll learn how each other plays, and they'll be able to fluidly play off of each other and communicate what positions to cover and what areas of the pitch to close down in order to make sure that we're able to close down those pockets as much as possible. Of course, it's never going to be perfect because it's League 2 football. It's never going to be flawless, but I think it is a thing that just give this again very inexperienced defence and inexperienced team time to kind of learn the ropes of the game. A lot of them have barely played senior football, so I think if you just give them time, it'll come with it. But
how much of a risk is that, though? Because when I've watched the fantastic interviews that the club have done with new signings, or it might have been with Nelson in his pre-match interviews or whatever, the key word I'm noticing a lot is promotion.
Yeah.
They keep talking about wanting to get promoted. Do you think the aim is promotion this season?
I'd think so, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I think what you've got to think when, of course, you're a football team and all this other stuff in a competitive division is that you're not going to play with the intention of mid-table. You'll want to set the standards high, and it's good that they're being they're being very optimistic and aiming for that, because that's a ceiling that I generally do think from what we've seen so far this season that they can reach. Whether they do, it all depends on what we've now been able to see is how are we going to respond to all the suspensions and injuries. Can we sort out the back line and all this other stuff?
Literally, it's 12 months ago.
It's exactly like 12 months ago, but I feel like we're in a lot of a better position now than we were 12 months back. I feel the depth is a lot stronger. I feel that the coaching staff do well to actually deal with the problems. We saw the problems on the opening day against Cheltenham, and they were not quite entirely removed when we played Doncaster. To a good majority, it was all sorted. So I think aiming for promotion is, again, I feel like that should be the minimum standard for any team, to be honest with you. But, it's different, isn't it, this season? Because you never get it as vocal. Last season, when we were near the playoffs, Graham Coughlin and the players didn't mention it at all, which, in hindsight,
until it was too late almost. Yeah,
in hindsight, maybe it is because they knew how many injuries were going to happen, and they almost felt that there was the potential for the rails to come off. And again, in hindsight, that's exactly what happens. It's good to have that positive intent from the start. It just depends how they can respond to setbacks and everything. So I think that's the important thing you need to do in this league. Yeah,
and as you just mentioned, they kind of show that they have the ability to put things right, haven't they? You just mentioned the opening game and then went away to Leyton Orient, conceded 4 there, I believe, lost 4-1 again. There's a bit of an on-running theme this season. If we lose 4-1, how much of that kind of adaptability is going to be important in this league? As we mentioned, we'll come on to it after, about the injuries, and obviously they'll come in no matter what team you are, you're always going to get injuries. That adaptability and that adaptability, how important do you see that being throughout the season, and do you think we have the capability of doing that?
I think we have a lot more of a capability to justify being able to adapt to setbacks and injuries and all the usual things that you have as
more than last season?
I feel like we do, yeah. I think, for me, the thing that I've noticed more this season is that I do believe we've got a stronger squad, like in terms of depth and in terms of like-for-like players who can switch into positions, and that I suppose matches in with the inexperienced things, because they're all inexperienced. You'll want to see what every single player has to offer and whether they can, immediately cement themselves. But that also brings the extra competitive edge to that squad, that they'll all want to, play regular minutes. Is the reason that we signed Keiron Antwi, because he wants to play first-team football, and I'd imagine it's the reason we've signed, a majority, if not all of those players, because they want to play football. And I think the thing we had last season was that you could probably, if you were to say our squad was fit, you could name our strongest starting 11.
Yes.
Without a doubt. It wasn't even close. I think this season there's maybe 6 players that you go, right, they'll start a majority, if not all games, if they're fit. But then the rest of it, you're like, we can play this play, like in defence, for example, you can go, we can play Keiron Brennan, you can go Nelson Sanka, James Clark, but then we do fit Matt Baker. For me, it feels a lot stronger to the depth, and I think that the depth for us is what we missed last season, and it's the reason we weren't able to adapt, because you noticed when we had all these injuries, we were bringing players in who potentially didn't fit the style of football that wanted to be played. But I think it is different this season. I do think we can adapt really well to it.
Do you think we've almost learned from the mistakes that were made last season with the injuries and all that? Because it did get quite bad, and I know Hugh Jenkins is someone that does take note of these things, and I know Graham Cochran, when he was still in charge, said over the summer he wanted to almost take an inquest into why there were the amount of injuries that there were. Do you think that they've learned from 12 months ago?
I don't think you can necessarily learn from injuries, because no matter what you do to try and prevent them, they're going to happen. It's a physical league. But I think that the thing that we've done to attempt to subsidize that issue, and hopefully mean that, like you mentioned, we can adapt to these kind of things, is that we've brought in, again, a really strong overall squad as opposed to just a starting 11. I think that's what every team kind of wants. They want a squad of talented players that can all fit into the team. And Hugh Jenkins would have saw what happened last season, the fact that the injuries literally derailed that season, and any hopes, of course, that we were going to sneak into that top 7. But you even saw from day one when Hugh Jenkins came in, he talked about, obviously wanted to sort out the problem with the Elise Rodney parade. He's a problem solver, and I think he has done really well this summer in terms of the involvement with the recruitment and what he's actually done with it. I do think it's really positive.
I think we've gone into a little bit into my talking points, so we'll park that conversation there. I want to read a stat out to you. You might have seen I posted on social media last night. Newport County haven't won a game in September. I believe it's in the league since we beat Walsall 2-1 in September 2021. That's the reason why I thought I'd play Wake Me Up When September Ends by Green Day yesterday after the game. If you're there, you would know September just isn't a good month for Newport County.
I think that September, you saw it last season, September is when we had that first wave of injuries. We had that first huge problem with it. And if you want to talk problem solving, is it going to be a thing now of we're going to problem solve the month of September? Can we just bin it off the calendar maybe? I don't know, can we just act like it's all...
Get rid of September altogether. Maybe. Sorry if you're born in September, you're not having a birthday anymore.
No, well, we're getting rid of it because Newport historically haven't performed very well in September.
Can't win in September.
No, I think it's very much a thing of... Even that that's a thing that you want to break. You know,
Yes.
we had the losing run that, albeit new season, I personally didn't really count that losing run, but, you know, of course it was 10 competitive games.
Yeah, it would have been in the end.
You want to break that cycle. They've done that. I'm sure they albeit it probably won't be, you know, first choice option of, guys, historically we haven't done well in September, so can we sort that out, please? But I feel like it could be a thing that is generally in the back of their minds of if we can perform well in September, you know, we'll be in a lot of a better position come October, December than, you know, Newport teams prior have been. So it'll be an interesting one. I don't want to feel like, you know, you can talk about a month and go, oh, study this month, we're crap in this month. But no, I feel it is a thing that if they just take it game by game and almost ignore that it's September, maybe it'll go differently.
I was going to say, do you think that's something more for players like your Nick Townsends, maybe your James Clarks, who have been here for a couple of seasons now? How much does that might play on them, that the fact that, you know, September we haven't won in coming up to 3 years?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be a thing that's immediately on their minds. I don't really think they'll go, oh, September, it's been 2 seasons since we've won in September. You know, I wouldn't think that'll be a first priority of them. I'd imagine the professionalism of taking it game by game will just be a thing, as opposed to what fixtures do we have in September. But again, you know, it could be something that's in the back of their mind, especially if it gets publicised by you know, media outlets that reach the players. Maybe they can look at it and go, let's see if we can, you know, we can aim higher and we can aim to break that.
Kind of rise above the noise almost.
Yeah, I don't really think it's needed necessarily, but it's definitely something that could play a factor depending on how, you know, how whether there's noise generated about it.
I want to pick up something that Nelson said in his post-match interview yesterday. Everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong.
I think everyone on the ground said that. I was talking to this guy on the terrace, and I said to him, everything that could have gone wrong this game, and we both repeated at the same time, went wrong. Everything that could have derailed that game and made it slip away from us happened. And at the end of the day, you know, I could sit here for the next, 20 minutes, 25 minutes and blame the official, because I didn't think he had a good game at all. I don't think the red cards were red cards, especially the first one. I really don't think it's justified, but at the end of the day...
Let's come on to that, because the first one was the straight red card.
Yeah, first one was the one that Keiron Brennan got for... I think the term used was violent conduct, which... in my eyes, and I've slowed this down, I've watched it time and time again, the Port Vale player, I believe, was it their number 8, maybe? Number 6, I don't quite remember. But he's wrapped himself around Keiron Brennan's leg, literally wrapped himself around his one leg.
Like a snake.
Literally, and Keiron Brennan has just tried to walk off and take his foot out of the, you know, like away from the Port Vale player.
So Keiron Brennan is trying to
he's literally just trying to move, and I potentially understand why the ref thinks, oh, maybe he you know, he stomped on him or like stood on his hand or something, because the Port Vale player all of a sudden was, you know, the second Keiron Brennan walked off, he kind of turned around and like shouted at the ref. So I you know, whether the ref just immediately said, oh yeah, he's definitely done that because the Port Vale player said so. But I could potentially, like, at worst, and I don't even think it's a foul personally, but if he was to give a booking for it, if he was to give a yellow card, all right, albeit I don't think that's the right decision either, you can let it slide, but a straight red for me is ridiculous.
Now, again, going back to last season, Graham Coughlin, when he was in charge, kept saying over and over again that they get letters of apology from the officials.
It's going to happen again.
I was going to say, should Nelson Jardim expect a letter of apology?
You should expect a letter you should expect a first-class stamped letter in the post that arrives on his desk Monday morning. For me, and again, even the second red, Kyle James, and he obviously had a yellow card for an earlier foul. That was a booking, yeah, sure. But the second one, I believe a Port Vale player was down, or somebody was down that it meant the play was stopped. There was a break in play. And to my knowledge, Port Vale fans were throwing balls onto the pitch. So Kyle Jameson kicked it back at that stand. And that one, I understand a lot more. In my eyes, I do understand that second booking a lot more than the straight red that Keiron Brennan got, because, you know, he's hit it into that stand with some force, and some will say that it was reckless and unneeded and not professional. But at the same time, you're losing 4-1. You're already a player down. It's incredibly frustrating as it is. And then you've got, you know, random footballs just being thrown onto the pitch. I kind of understand it, why he's reacted that way, but again, at the same time, it is a silly thing to get sent off for. But I do understand that one a lot more than Keiron Brennan's straight red.
Obviously, 2 yellow cards. I don't know how the rules are around, you know, appealing red cards. I don't know whether you can for 2 yellows or whether it's straight reds. Do you expect us to appeal the Brennan red card? And if so, do you think it'll be overturned?
I'd hope so. I really hope that red card, Keiron Brennan's especially, is appealed, because, again, for me, at most, that's a booking. And even then, I think that would be harsh. But, you know, at the end of it, we'll talk about this later. But without Keiron Brennan, and this is just numbers for centre-backs, and this is relying on Matt Baker coming back, you know, without getting injured on under-21s duty. We've got 4 centre-backs, and we play a back 3. I question if we don't appeal it, and I don't know how many games these players are going to be suspended for. I think does it depend on how many red cards they got over a certain time?
It could do. I want to say that yellow and a red could be 1 game, and then straight red is 3.
Yeah, straight red's 3. That Keiron Brennan, right? If we don't appeal that, for me, I think that's, you know, like a loss. Like, you know, I think that is a huge loss for us, because I do expect them to apologise for that red especially, and I would expect us to appeal it, because, you know, why wouldn't you? You have every single bit of evidence to almost back that it wasn't a straight red.
And there was another red card on Tuesday night, even in the EFL Cup or EFL Trophy against Cheltenham. Do you think this is kind of... We spoke about inexperience a little bit earlier. Do you think that this is the experience showing through?
It's a little bit of, you know, players are potentially too keen and too passionate and letting their emotions come through a little bit. And, you know, like, the more Kearney plays, for example, the more he'll make those mistakes less. But albeit, you know, we won't talk about that game, because I hate that competition with a passion. But, you know, it's not really his fault that he was put in that situation.
It's a game at Wembley to win a trophy.
No thanks. Given our Wembley record in recent years,
That's very true.
I'm not in the mood to lose to a 90th minute winner, thank you. But
after dodgy refereeing decisions.
After a dodgy refereeing decision, yeah, but I'll get annoyed if we continue talking about that. But no, like, the more that we talked about it earlier, the more this team plays, you know, games together, and the more they train together, learn how each other play, the more those mistakes, for example, you know, like that heading back from Glenn, and maybe he thought there was a defender there that he could have headed it back to, but obviously there wasn't. But the more they play together and know how they play and where they position themselves, the less that will happen. It's a very, very silly red card.
Is this almost consequence of the recruitment policy of kind of the young and inexperienced almost prospects that could go on to bigger and better things?
Yeah, I think it is, and that's why, you know, I was talking about, and a lot of people have talked about wanting a balance of experience along with that youthful, exciting recruitment policy that we have went for, because you know, you want players that are keen to do well and are unproven, and they want to impress, and they'll give everything to impress. But, you know, coming with that, obviously, can be potentially a little bit naivety, going in for challenges too heavily, or letting your emotions kind of overtake you from the professional aspect of the game and getting the job done. But again, with time and with the experienced players we've got, I'm sure that there will be almost that. There'll be that balance, you know, of the well-disciplined professional aspect of these players, but also that keenness to do well and, you know, play differently to how potentially a senior pro veteran, if you want to put it that way, will play the game.
I think the overall thing though is just frustration.
Yeah.
I think we lost our heads. I think Darren Moore, the Port Vale manager, said yesterday he's too good of a manager to be in League Two, in my opinion, Darren Moore.
I don't know.
I don't know about you.
I'm indecisive because, albeit what he did at Sheffield Wednesday was quality.
Was it 5-0 they won against
Peterborough
to get to the playoff final?
But I how much of that comeback was down to Darren Moore? Let's be fair, you know, how much of that was down to him? For me, he's got the players and the contacts to make a really strong team.
And he has at Port Vale.
But yeah, you know, he's made a strong team at Port Vale, but you look at then the job he did at Huddersfield, where he didn't quite have the players that suited him, and it almost feels that if he doesn't have a squad that's immediately gelled to his style of play, that adaptability doesn't seem to always land. So I'm indecisive. I think he's a good manager. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's like top 5 in this league. You know, I probably put him maybe top 5 would be.
Nelson Sanker's top of that list.
Top 5. Nelson Sanker as manager.
Nelson, I'm sure you do a good job. Nelson Jardim
goes top of the list. I'd actually say that he probably is in top 5, but I'd probably put him no higher than 4th. Good coach, but not for me. He's not, you know, steps and steps above this division.
Interesting. But yeah, he did say that kind of calmer heads prevailed in the end yesterday, and that's almost again what even Nelson Jardim. This is his first season in English management. It was Darren Moore. Whether
his sixth game, sixth senior game.
Even that voice off the bench, you know, Graham Coughlin, when he was still in charge, kind of, if things were like that, he'd calm the players down, he'd get them over, and you have that experience. Yeah. Again, we speak about inexperience. Do you think that almost inexperience on the touchline as well had an impact potentially on things yesterday?
I don't think you can. For me, I think there's only so much that a coach and manager can do when it comes to kind of disciplining their players while the game is going on. I think there's only so much you can do, and you know, I thought, if you want to go back to talking about the game, I thought at half-time, obviously we were 2-1 down, I thought we had a chance. We had I think we had a penalty call for me in my eyes ruled out. That free kick we got just before half-time, again, if you want to talk about the referees, why isn't, this was the number 6 Port Vale, why didn't he get booked? He was near enough last man, and he's, you know, right on the edge of the box. But again, whatever, we'll kind of, you know, it's been and gone now. You can't really dispute it. But I thought at half time I think we were second best for a majority of it, but we had chances to be in that game, and for me that. We've kind of praised, I suppose, Nelson Jardim's halftime team talks and the way that we've responded to being down. For example, when we were down to Doncaster, drawing to Accrington and second best, we came out really well in the second half, but it just didn't seem to work. You know, yesterday I almost felt that maybe it was the frustration of decisions not going our way in the first half, and it was expressed a lot more obviously in the second half. But I do think there's only so much managers can do to discipline their players while the game's going on. But I do think it is, you know, something Jardim can work on. But he'll know that more than anyone else. He'll know the areas that he'll want to improve to become, you know, a quality, stable, elite coach at this level.
Yeah, before we move into talking points, the last thing to do for this segment is pick a man of the match yesterday. So on Absolutely County on Twitter, your options were Aaron Wildick, who scored. It's hard to think that we got a goal yesterday. We were speaking about how poor we were for the past 20 minutes or so. It's hard to think that it was 4-1 and it was it 1-1 at one point, or was it 2-1?
Yeah, it was 1-1 at one point, yeah.
Oh, I'd bite your hand off for a point. Aaron Wildick, Ollie Greaves, Anthony Glennon, or other, because, if you had a better suggestion, let me know. But Keiron, you were there yesterday, seeing the game. Who was your man of the match?
There's one name, and it's not even like man of the match in terms of he was elite. He was just head and shoulders above the really poor result that's hopefully a one-off, and that's Aaron Wildick for me.
Got a great goal as well. I think, is that 3-3 for him, or was that 3-4?
I'd like to say 3-3.
Yeah.
He scored against Accrington, scored obviously against Morecambe last weekend, and obviously scored yesterday, 3-3.
89.1% of people agree with you. Aaron Wildick is the man of the match, and I agree. Undisputedly the man of the match, and I absolutely agree. Head and shoulders above everyone. His experience really shone through, and I'm just surprised.
Never thought I'd see Aaron Wildick, by the way, covering at centre-back, because he was doing that for a good while.
He was doing a bit of everything yesterday.
To be fair, covering at centre-back, I thought he did really well. We got him with a few challenges, a few interceptions.
Well, talking about him moving on to covering centre-back, Keiron, what we got coming up next? What do you want to talk about this week?
Well, how we're going to somehow sort out this back line.
Right here. Right now. Newport City Radio.
Well, as I alluded to very minimally earlier on within the bigger segment, of course, we've got, at least to my knowledge, with the suspensions that we've got, and again, relying on Matt Baker being fined following Wales under-21 international duty, 4 centre-backs. And would I be correct in saying that?
I believe so. So, Matty Baker, Josh Seabury, Keiron Evans, and Nelson Sanka.
Yeah, and some will argue maybe Joe Thomas. Some will say maybe...
We haven't seen this season.
Exactly, yeah. You maybe say Joe Thomas, albeit we've all kind of been accustomed to him playing, signed as a right back, if you want to put it that way. I think he's almost like Josh Seabury in the way that he can play right side as centre back and right back. But this is a genuine question. I'll ask you, Luke. Put the formations and everything in. Do you play a fullback and have a little bit more cover if injuries and whatnot happened with only 4 fit natural centre backs? Or do you risk playing a 3/5 back, knowing that if we get 2 injuries or whatnot, or even from playing midweek, we won't really have the cover?
I think that we've seen when we played the back 4, and we mentioned it earlier, we conceded 7-2 whilst playing that back 4. Against Cheltenham on the opening day of the season, then in the Carabao Cup against Leyton Orient, lost 4-1 and 3-2 respectively. The options you have there, you got Sanka, who is 18, who made a mistake for a goal yesterday. Yes, he's young, he'll learn from that. We were talking about that off air. He has impressed when he's played, whether it's the back end of last season or the first couple of games this season. He really impressed on Tuesday night when he came off the bench. So yeah, if he has a run of games, I think he can develop into maybe the next player we might look to almost sell on. I think that with his age and how good he is already, I think he can and probably will play a higher level. I'm saying that now. Matty Baker, I hope he's okay. Fingers crossed he's okay. He played on Tuesday night. I think he ended up going to right back when some of our players went off injured and substituted and whatever. Obviously we had to rejig things with the red cards. Keiron Evans, is done okay so far this season. Was at Taunton last season, came in a free, knows Jardine well, knows Hugh Jenkins well, obviously through his time at Swansea. I think as time goes on, again, like Keiron Brennan, he'll develop, he'll get better with experience in this league. I think he's already shown that he can play in multiple positions, which you do need in League 2 football. I'd go with a back four.
You'd go with a back
I'd go
four.
with a, purely because of who's available. But then, what do you do in midfield? If you go to a back four, do you stick with a midfield three? Do you maybe go to midfield two? We've got quite a few midfielders, if you hadn't noticed this season. So what do you do with them? How do you keep them all happy?
This is how I've kind of thought about it, and this is in hope that Michael Spellman isn't too far off of course returning.
We haven't seen him so far this season.
Being a right winger, I did see he was at the ground yesterday doing a little bit of warming up and whatnot. So whatever kind of injury problem he's got, I'm sure he's not too far off. But we've seen Cameron Antwick play on the right side. I would personally, and I don't know whether you'd agree with this, I'd almost play a 4-5-1 because we've got a stack of midfielders.
Yes,
you have
who all seem impressive.
Who all seem impressive, and they all have a range of abilities and qualities. I'd almost go relying on, especially from what we saw yesterday, you'd put Bryn Morris almost as the holding midfielder.
You can play at centre back. Nelson said in his post-match interview yesterday.
You could potentially play him as more of a holding midfielder between the two, and then you talk. Obviously, Wildig has to start in the centre of the pack. You have Bobby Camber on the left.
Yeah.
Again,
I thought was really ineffective yesterday.
I think the whole team was ineffective. I think you need to have him thrive. You need to have the whole team, clicking and have the whole team linking well and whatnot, which obviously didn't happen. But you then go on the right side. You'd probably say next week, Antwi. Then who do you put as the other midfielder? Is the real good question. Obviously, you put Courtney Baker-Richard up top.
Of course.
You got Glenn and left back, and then
we do have, as I say, we signed two players last Thursday, the day before deadline day.
Maybe Jamie Miley. I've heard really positive things about him when he had the involvement in the first half and on midweek.
Like yesterday, first half against Cheltenham, played with 11 men, played really well, looked to really take the game to them. It took about 20 minutes to settle into the game. I think Cheltenham started off on the better foot, but when we got going, some really good passes of play. I know good friend here at Look Back in Amber, Stephen, obviously regular contributor on Newport City Radio, was there, and he said that he was really impressed in the first half by the county. But then second half, when we went down to 10 men again, like yesterday, we kind of had to revert to almost trying to hold on to the lead, which eventually, slipped away from us as Colwell scored for them, which he seems to be I know, he seems to be our Kevin Allison from a couple of years ago, wherever we play against him, he always scores.
I'd like to say he was linked with us last summer, not the most recent one, but I'd like to say he was linked the summer prior.
I think, though, and we'll come on to this again when we talk about injuries, why didn't we make a better offer for Scott Bennett?
Again, you may be saying hindsight, we want to go for this younger approach with the team, but at the same time, that experience and the amount of duration he had at the club was a head and shoulders above everyone else, and he
rarely got injured.
And if he was here at the minute, we had got them signed in another year, we'd be going, it's no bother, we can just chuck Scott Bennett at centre back, he'll be alright. But obviously we don't have that, and it's always going to be something that I understand why it happened, but at the same time, I would have personally offered him a contract to make him stay.
I think they did offer him a contract, but in terms he wasn't really.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't suitable for him to or sustainable. In the same way that we let go of Mickey Demetriou the summer prior, and the words were there that we offered him a a lower paid contract and a pay cut, but he'd apparently already accepted 2 of them prior. And again, I think those kind of players and that experience to balance the squad out would have been absolutely perfect. But obviously we don't have them anymore, so we're kind of having to deal with what we've got. And unfortunately, the experience in defence course of James Clark, was he out for 3 weeks now?
Which we'll come on to in a couple of seconds' time when we talk about injuries. Woohoo! Our favourite word on this podcast.
Yay.
Right here.
Right here.
Right now.
Right now.
Newport City Radio.
It was the word of the season last season, and I think it's creeping into this. Injuries, and even more injuries. It did really derail us last season. We were pushing towards the playoffs, I think. Was it 5 unbeaten? And then we lost our last...
5 unbeaten, I'd like to say, wasn't it 4 wins and on the bounce as well?
Potentially. And then lost key players and injuries happened. We've seen yesterday, obviously...
Lost 8 on the bounce, woohoo. Did you know that we lost 8 on the bounce?
I didn't know.
Towards the end of last season, that meant we finished 18th.
I didn't know.
No, I bet you didn't. And do you want to know why that happened? This will be revolutionary for you to hear. We got a few injuries, man.
This is the groundbreaking analysis you only hear on Look Back in Amber. It's the only podcast, the only Newport County podcast where you get that kind of groundbreaking analysis.
How would you know that we had injuries if I didn't say it here?
Exactly.
What happened otherwise?
But yeah, we lost Shane McLaughlin yesterday. He seemed like he picked up the same injury that kept him out for a couple of months last season.
Deary me.
Jardine didn't really have a diagnosis on him yet, because obviously when we spoke to him it was only after the game. James Clark, as you say, really experienced at the back, but he picked up an injury a couple of weeks ago and is going to be out. I think he's only out for another week or 2, so fingers crossed he's not too far away. Nick Townsend went down about 3 or 4 times yesterday. I thought he was going to go off, but being the warrior that he is, stayed on.
It'll be interesting. I think there's been a lot of comments about Nick Townsend and whether when he goes down, is he actually injured, or is he trying to slow the game down, especially yesterday when Port Vale were really applying pressure. But no, he obviously at the end of the game he didn't look in the best of comfort. Maybe that was just because of the result, but we'll have to see.
Kai Whitmore's injured. He started off the season really impressively, scored against Doncaster.
Injured in training, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, injured in training. Jamie Miley missed yesterday. I believe he was ill. He had an illness, Jardine was saying, and same with Noah. How do you pronounce his second name?
Is it I don't even know. Moani?
Moani?
I'd like to say Moani sounds better.
Moani.
So I'm going to go with Moani.
We're going to go with Moani on the Look Back in Amber podcast. Yeah, they were missing yesterday. I think both of them are fine, though. He said they, again, really impressive on shooting the Papa John's trophy. And then up top, we know that Cagbo picked up a shoulder and dislocated his shoulder against Cheltenham on the opening day.
Oh, good.
We replaced him with an even taller striker at 6'9".
Unbelievable. You sign a 6'6" striker and everyone's like, wow, that's a statement. What a signing, 6'6". You won't find a striker like that. Gets injured, we sign someone 3 inches taller. When he came on yesterday, it was like quite literally head and shoulders above the rest. I think their tallest defender was about 6'5". And you're tall when you're towering over someone that's 6'5". Unreal.
Michael Spellman's been out injured. We haven't seen him yet competitively in any Newport County. I'm really looking forward to seeing him. Did well at Sunderland. Just in a couple of minutes, they are creeping back in. Whether you want to say it or not, it just adds with that experience. As we mentioned, Clark's out, McLaughlin's out. With a drive of youth won us over the summer. We didn't really sign experienced players. I think the only experienced player we signed, you could argue, was Courtney Baker-Richardson.
You could maybe argue in terms of experience at this club, Matt Baker, you could maybe argue that. But again, in terms of overall senior experience, it's still quite low in comparison to what we've had prior.
And an injury crisis. I don't want to use the word crisis yet.
I don't think it's
an injury situation.
Yeah. Definitely
like
more an
this.
appropriate term. Yeah.
Really, for me, exposes almost the lack of experience that wasn't necessarily signed over the summer.
Yeah, definitely. Again, I seem to say this word about 50 million times every time we talk about this, but that balance is something that that really does get shown as being imbalanced, if anything, when you see all these injuries to the experienced players. But it's going to happen as you get more into your career. You know, you'll pick up knocks a little bit easier and all this other stuff, and they could be, you know, worse than knocks than potentially if you were a kind of younger player coming up and whatnot. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't use crisis. I would say that it's noticeable. The quality of players that we've got out, albeit the quantity isn't too high as of now. But
as of now, I think is the key word.
Again, currently, it's as of now. You know, the quantity isn't too bad, and I think we do have the players to cover, albeit they're inexperienced, and then again balance wherever it has. That's a different question. I think again we saw that in brief. I say in brief. We saw that within its actual T definition yesterday with the lack of discipline and whatnot. That you say maybe if there was an experienced player on the pitch, they'd be or a more experienced player who's used to dealing with those situations would be able to calm it down a bit more. But no, again, it's noticeable. But they're not, other than Cargbo and potentially McLaughlin, when we find out what's up with him, they're not too long durations either. You know, you're talking James Clark again, a week or two until he's potentially back and involved. Again, we don't know what's going on with Spellman, but I did see him yesterday. He was present at the ground, so potentially he's not too far off. Whitmore, again, do we know an extent, so to speak, of what he's out for?
Like Clark, a month or two?
Yeah, you know, like, in comparison to what we had last season where, you know, in February we had Ryan Delaney put out for the rest of the season and whatnot, it's not that bad.
It's not. Some of that hopefully will be a little bit better in the upcoming games.
Right here.
Right here.
Right now.
Right now.
Newport City Radio.
So we're going to give our thoughts on them just ever so quickly. Keiron, what's the score going to be when we travel away in a bit of a local derby against Swindon Town?
After seeing them perform 4-0 County.
4-0 County. We're going to break the September duck. And then we are home in our second group game against West Ham in the Bristol Street Motors Trophy. West Ham under 21s. What's the score going to be there?
Oh, it's been an absolute goal fest before. 4-4. We win on penalties.
4-4. You get the extra point on penalties. Then we go away to Barrow, who, like County, have made a pretty decent start to the season. What's the score going to be when we go away to the... What's their stadium called? They've got an interesting...
Legal Stadium, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
1-1.
1-1, and then we are home next in the league, and Mickey Demetriou and Omar Bogo will be returning to Rodney Parade.
Hell yeah.
Called here at Newport County as Crew come to town on the 28th of September. What's the score going to be there?
2-1 County, back to winning ways at home.
2-1 County, I agree. I think if we can get 3 wins or maybe 3 positive results of them, will be encouraging. Thank you for taking your time out to listen today. As always, we'd love to read your thoughts, but our thoughts on Facebook, X, and Instagram via direct message. Also on email at contact@newportcityradio.org. We'll catch you on Sunday the 29th of September at 2 p.m. as we continue to look back in amber the 2024-25 season. More talking points, more banter, and as always, more top-class analysis. We'll catch you then.
Right here, right now.
Newport City Radio.